Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of August 29th to September 4th, where I take a look at some of the stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion about them. Before we get started, I do want to give sort of a quick mini review on a show I just recently watched on Netflix, which is Godzilla Singular Point, if I'm saying the name correctly though. Basically, Netflix has done several Godzilla projects though, to some say computer animated movies though, to recently TV shows, this case Godzilla Singular Point, and I will say the show isn't bad or anything like that though. It goes into more like a scientific or sci-fi side to it, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that if you're going into this Godzilla Singular Point in the same way as you did with Godzilla versus Kong or anything like that, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed though, as while there are monsters and monster battles and all, it's not on the same level as say Godzilla versus Kong or Pacific Rim for that matter, so you're not going to get that kind of approach. So my take on it though is it's not bad, it's just not going to be on the level that Godzilla fans might anticipate, and it will be very interesting to see if a season 2 happens or anything like that. Alright, but anyway, like I said, we got 4 stories to cover, including apparently a redesign of the PS5, which, according to what we're hearing so far, some people are somewhat not happy with it though. We have basically Microsoft and Bethesda basically trying to reconfirm the issue regarding Starfield and possibly Elder Scrolls 6. We are also going to talk about the possibility that Game Boy games might be coming to the Nintendo Switch. And last but not least though, we'll be talking about basically a policy that Steam has done that, while it does sound good, it does sound like there may be some areas they need to address, and this has to do with Steam's refund policy though. And if you're interested in where I got all this information though, I'll have a link in the description of where I got the source of this information. But before we get started though, we'll do basically the quick My 2 Cent part, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of the details. The first one is that we know that a third update is now available for Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruins, which is certainly nice, though. It's out right now, so if you haven't downloaded, it's worth downloading though. We also looked at, basically showed screenshot of the upcoming new reboot Resident Evil movie that will be hitting cinemas in this November though. Still mixed on it though. It looks like it's staying more true to the game than say the old Resident Evil movies, you know, the Paul Wes Anderson ones though. Whether it's good or not, it remains to be seen though. I'm not holding my breath on this one, but we'll find out in November if it turns out to be actually good or not, though. We also learn about from Suda51, though, that basically he has 5 new games in production and 3 are new IPs, though. Whether or not those games will make their way onto the Nintendo Switch or not remains to be seen, so we'll have to wait and see on that. We also, not to mention, we learned that basically the rights for No More Heroes has now gone back to Marvelous, and it's no longer in their hands, which is, if true, somewhat unfortunate though. We learned also that basically Suda51 is interested in basically would love to do a Marvel game, particularly on Deadpool, which I would love to see that happen. I would love to see Suda51 do a take on the Deadpool in general. That would be really neat though. We also learned that basically CD Projekt Red cannot guarantee the fact that the updated or the next gen version of Cyberpunk 2077 for the Xbox Series S and X and the PS5. There's no guarantee it will be coming out this year though. Again, we don't know. Again, I can understand why it's possible it may not be out in time though, considering that we're getting close to the end of the year and all, and there have been some claims that they don't want to make the mistake when they launched Cyberpunk 2077 last year in a, well, let's just say in a piss poor state. So we'll have to wait and see if it comes out this year or not, but time will ultimately tell if that does happen though. We also learned that Crysis 2 and Crysis 3 Remastered though is basically going to be coming to the Switch though, along with the other versions though, but they will be sold individually and all, which, while somewhat disappointed on that, I certainly am not losing complete sleep over it. If it's being sold individually, though, I think that, in my opinion, that's a better approach than assuming there's a physical version, the whole we'll put one game in one cart and you have to download the rest kind of approach. So assuming a physical version has happened, we don't know if it is. But either way, Crysis 2 and 3 are currently coming to remastered, though, are currently coming to the Nintendo Switch. We learned that THQ Nordic does have 6 new games that they are in development at this time, though, that they will announce at Jeff Kelly's, if I'm saying his name, though, his showcase and all. Again, we don't know which games they are, but they did tease about one that gives the impression that it's possible that it could be a time splitter, though, so we'll have to wait and see if that does happen. Whether any of these games will make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, that remains to be seen. We also learned about basically the producer of Bravely Default would like to continue the series, though, but does admit that it might take a while as they are supposedly in early stages and all. Meanwhile, there's also been reported that Bravely Default actually, or Bravely Default 2 actually did very well. I think it sold like 1 million copies. I'll have to double check that, but nevertheless, that is certainly nice to see that they are going to continue the series. It's a little disappointing. We may have to wait a little bit. We also saw some gameplay footage of Marvel's Midnight Sun that was shown off, which is certainly a little different, especially with the use of the cards, which kind of raised some concerns for some folks, wondering if this was going to be a case of basically microtransactions or anything like that. And at least according to what the developers are saying, though, in a tweet that they put out, they said, quote, "Hey folks, regarding our battle card system, there are no loot boxes in Marvel's Midnight Sun or related microtransactions to get more cards, i.e. Gamma Coins, COINS. We will have purely cosmetic skins for purchases that do not affect game balance in any way, though." So on one hand, it's great, at least if what the developers are saying are true, that there won't be any microtransactions in the upcoming Marvel's Midnight Sun. But on the other hand, I think it is kind of sad that we're at a point where now we have to start questioning whether or not a game will have microtransactions or loot boxes or not. So it is a little unfortunate, though. As for what they showed off so far, it looks kind of interesting. I will certainly keep my eye on it, though. It's nice that it's also coming to the Nintendo Switch, but obviously for this game to run on the Switch, there's going to have to be some clearly certain compromises to make it run, though, and it's going to be interesting to see if this is being developed by the folks who worked on XCOM or Civilization series, or is this being handled by, say, a port house. As we all know, XCOM 2, which was ported over to the Nintendo Switch, was handled by Virtuos, if I'm saying the name correctly, as they are the ones that handled the port of that game, to be exact. So we'll have to wait and see. And last but not least, though, Platinum Games had put out basically a tweet telling people it's been 2 years since Astro Chain has come out, and I certainly think that's good to remind people on that. From what I understand, it did do well for a new IP, not hugely, but did well enough, though. Obviously, last time we've heard of it, though, Nintendo got the rights to it, so it's unclear whether or not a sequel is going to happen. I hope it does happen, or even a prequel, though. I am a little worried if Platinum is not going to do, if a sequel or a prequel does happen, I'm a little worried if Platinum's not going to work on it. But on the other hand, we did have Nier Replicant, that was handled by another studio, not Platinum, which did Nier Automata, though, and that game turned out to be very well indeed. So there is that possibility if an Astro Chain sequel does happen, or prequel. Side note, though, I would like for it to happen, though. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with regarding Steam, especially with the whole Steam refund policy. Now, I'll admit, though, I'm not a PC gamer. I'm more of a console gamer, to be exact. But I will give credit to the fact that Steam decided to introduce this policy a while back, which is the Steam refund policy, which basically allows Steam users to refund the game, supposedly if it's been under like 2 hours and all. And in some ways, I do like this approach. I think this is a very pro-consumer approach, and I would love to see the console manufacturers like Microsoft, Sony, and yes, even Nintendo as well. Though Nintendo does offer the ability ability to refund your game if you pre-order it, though they don't offer a refund in terms of if you purchase a game, though. So on one hand, it's a step in the right direction, but on the other hand, I think there's more they could be doing with this. But in either way, I do think it is a good policy, though. However, it seems as though there may be some issues with this policy, and it's possible that Valve and Steam may have to address this issue, though, at some point. In an article posted on GameSpot, it reads that, quote, Dev steps away from making games after alleged abuse of Steam's refund policy. According to developers Aulx Games, Summer of '58 has been refunded countless times despite receiving positive reviews. An indie developer is stepping away from making games after claimed that abuse of Steam's refund policy has prevented them from profiting on their latest title. The developer in question, Aulx EMIKA Games, is a solo indie developer behind Find Yourself, Lock Up, and the recently released Summer of '58. Each of their games has positive reviews on Steam, including Summer of '58. However, that hasn't stopped players from refunding the game, which costs just $9, immediately after playing it. In most cases, that wouldn't be possible, but because Summer of '58 just takes an hour and a half to beat, it's possible for players to request a refund through Steam. In a statement on Twitter, the developer thanked people for their support, but announced that I'm leaving game development for an indefinite time to collect my thoughts. According to Aulx Games, the large number of refunds for Summer of '58 has meant that they do not earn anything to create a new game. Aulx Games' upcoming titles from day to day has likewise been delayed indefinitely as well, with the developer saying this game will not see the light of day in the near future. If the refund policy was abused, this episode would highlight a major issue with Steam's handling of refund. The digital marketplace policy let players get their money back after buying a game as long as it's been played for under 2 hours. For larger titles like Mountain Blade, Bannerlord, or Halo the Master Chief Collection, this policy makes sense. However, it can be extremely punishing to indie developers who, much like Aulx Games, make shorter games that can be beaten quickly. The Epic Games Store has a similar refund policy which lets users self-refund games if they played less than 2 hours over the course of 14 days. Now, I will say, still after hearing about this though, my position hasn't entirely changed though. I still think this is a good policy nevertheless, and I still stand behind my belief that basically I would like to see Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, as I mentioned before, I would like to see them implement this kind of policy as well. So my position isn't completely changed. That being said, though, I could understand how this can be exploited and abused to a certain degree, and I do think there may have to be some modification for the policy, especially if we're talking about smaller games or games that don't take longer to beat those. So I do think there needs to be some kind of change. Maybe if it's a game that's under 2 hours, maybe there's a change to the policy where you have to beat it this certain amount of time, or maybe you have to play it maybe like 10 minutes or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely clear that this policy can easily be abused though, and I do hope that Steam and Valve do find a way to maybe address this issue and maybe try to fix it though. So overall, my takeaway is this: my view on the policy doesn't change. I do agree with the idea of a digital refund, and I think this is the right direction, and I do agree with the approach Steam is doing, but I don't dispute the fact that this could easily be exploited and abused, and I do hope that at some point Steam and Valve do find a way to address this where they can continue to have this policy, though, and continue in which is a pro-consumer, which I definitely support, but at the same time ensure that it's not being exploited or abused in any way. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with possible rumors that Game Boy and possibly retro consoles could basically make their way over to the Nintendo Switch via the Switch Online service. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a recent report that's coming out that's pointing towards the possibility we could see Game Boy and Game Boy Color games making their way over to the Nintendo Switch via the Switch Online service, though. Now, the Switch Online service is is a mixed bag for some folks. Some people like it, some people don't. We've had like a whole bunch of NES and Super NES games and all, but at the same time, there's also been its share of criticism of, they don't really put a whole lot of games in there and all that, or the games they put up don't really appeal to everybody. But like anything, it's to each one's taste. Some people will like this game, some people will not. Some people won't like this game and all that stuff. But despite that, though, we've heard a lot of people that have wanted to push for like more to the service, like say putting games like N64 or GameCube, or even Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, though. Well, apparently there is reports coming out that Nintendo might be planning to bring over possibly Game Boy and Game Boy Color. In an article, if I can get it out, an article from Nintendo Life, it reads, and I'll get to the updated part in just a minute though, it reads that, quote, Next month, point out this article came out August 31st, marks the third year of the Switch Online service, and it seems there's discussion once again about Nintendo potentially bolstering its paid service with additional retro content. In the latest Nate to Hate podcast, known insider Nate Drake talks about how Nintendo might be adding Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles in the coming weeks. It all stems from a data mine dated back to 2019, which revealed 4 emulators inside Nintendo's NES app. While the purpose of the remaining emulators still hasn't been revealed, both Nate and his co-host MVG believes the third one, Hiyoko, Hiyoko, it's likely for Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles. Nintendo has also confirmed with its own source that Game Boy Color titles are likely to come to the Nintendo Switch service really soon. The same insider is far less optimistic about Game Boy Advance titles arriving on the paid online service in the near future, noting how several companies are currently working on re-releases, including Nintendo, who has the Advance War Remastered coming out this December. We've also not heard anything about Game Boy Advance titles being included in this update. Now, they updated this article by also pointing out, quote, our friends over at Eurogamer has done some digging and has separately corroborated our report that Game Boy Colors are heading to Nintendo Switch Online service, and they've gone as far as to claim that other retro platforms are also on the cards. So, assuming this is true, when could Nintendo possibly announce this? Well, I mean, it's possible Nintendo could actually shadow drop this, though. They have been known to do stuff like that before in the past. Other possibilities could be pointing to basically that we could be due for a Nintendo Direct, and that Nintendo might announce it during their Direct, though. Some are speculating the Direct could be out next week. Others are saying maybe a week after that. But some are pointing to September. We'll have to wait and see if that Direct does happen, though. But the idea of Game Boy and Game Boy Color games on the Nintendo Switch certainly is very interesting, though. And it'll be curious to see what games they could bring over to it, though. My guess is the entire Mario Land and Wario Land series, minus Wario Land 4, which is on Game Boy Advance, though. I still think it's possible Game Boy Advance games could make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, but it's also possible, given how Advance Wars is getting a remake, it's possible that something like Wario Land 4 could possibly get a remake, though too early to tell if that's even happening or not, though. But also, I do wonder if they are bringing them over, will they be on the level of, say, like seeing stuff like what we saw with the infamous Super Game Boy, where basically you can add colors or certain things to your Game Boy games, or is it going to be on the levels like what we saw on the 3DS, though, where you could switch between two different styles if you're playing the game like it was on the original Game Boy, though? Either way, though, we'll have to find out, hopefully soon, though. I'm certainly down with Game Boy and Game Boy Color games coming over. I mean, there are a lot of classic games that would be great that they brought over. Obviously, the ones I point to are like the Wario Land series and the Super Mario Land 1 and 2. That certainly would be nice, though. But like I said, as far as the Game Boy Advance one, I'm not less optimistic though. I do believe that it's possible they could bring the Game Boy Advance games over, but time will tell if that truly happens or not. As for other retro consoles, I could see them maybe bringing over stuff from like the Game Gear. I mean, that could be a possibility though. We have seen some games from the Neo Geo Pocket make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, so there's that possibility. The other possibility is maybe bring games over for going as far back as maybe like Commodore 64. I mean, that might be a stretch, but if they're saying retro consoles, I mean, I could see that happening too. So overall though, I do think that they're more than likely we are going to see Game Boy and Game Boy Color games make their way over to the Nintendo Switch. When it will happen remains to be seen. Like I said, Nintendo could announce it at their so-called Direct, which many believe will be out this month. Other possibilities, they could shadow drop it at any time, as far as we are aware of. Though, I still think, like I said, I still think it's possible Game Boy Advance games could make their way over. As far as retro consoles go, I certainly would be really interesting to see if they bring, like, say, Game Gear games over to this to the Nintendo Switch Online service though, and it'll be interesting to see how they put the games out though. Are they going to pace it out like they did with what they're doing with the NES or Super NES, or are they going to take a much more different approach? Time will, however, ultimately tell when they finally do, if they do, but when they finally do announce Game Boy and Game Boy Color games coming to the Nintendo Switch. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with the whole issue surrounding Starfield, the new game from Bethesda, and the whole issue of whether it's still coming to the PS5 or other systems or not. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, I want to be talking about basically Bethesda's new game Starfield, and a interesting comment that has started to emerge that gave some people hope that the game will be coming to the PS5. Now, during around the time when Fallout 76 came out, including the whole debacle, the mess, and that turned out to be, although they're still supporting that game as we speak though, Bethesda, developers and publishers of games like The Evil Within, Wolfenstein, Doom, Elder Scrolls, Fallout though, Dishonored, Prey though, some of the games I do really enjoy from them to be exact though, basically did a teaser at the time of their new IP that they were working on, entitled Starfield. And for the while though, we didn't really have a huge amount of information though, and it was unclear what platform it was going to be on, though many speculate that it was going to be on the Xbox Series S and S and the PS5. However, that view kind of changed for some people when last year it was later learned that Microsoft basically was willing to spend billions of dollars, I think $7 billion, but I'm not 100% sure, to buy ZeniMax, and the company that owns Bethesda and all these IPs and all, under basically being owned by Microsoft. This certainly caught some people by surprise, and it also basically kind of raised some questions about their future IPs and all that stuff, especially with basically Starfield and all. Though, and some people hope that Starfield would be coming to other systems because of the fact that Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop were still scheduled to come to the PS5 and all. Although those were supposedly signed and that they would come to those systems first before they come to other systems. Mostly these were done well before Microsoft purchased Bethesda. So when it was revealed that basically during E3, when Microsoft showed off a teaser trailer for Starfield though, dubbed basically Skyrim in space, one of the things they showed off was what systems it would be coming to, and the most obvious thing they showed was Xbox Series S and X, and of course Game Pass and also PC. This basically should have put this issue to rest once and for all. However, recently though, Pete Hines, who works from Bethesda, made an interesting comment that started to give the speculation that it was possible that Starfield could make its way over to other systems though. However, it seems as though they had to sort of walk back and kind of clarify their statement though. In an article posted on Video Game Chronicles, it reads, quote, Bethesda's senior SVP, I assume Senior Vice President of Global Marketing, Pete Hines, and Xbox General Manager of Games Marketing, Aaron Greensberg, both took to Twitter to quell speculations after some of the things said during a Bethesda Gamescom streams were interpreted by some suggesting that Starfield could come to PS5 in the future. Hines stated on the stream that Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda didn't mean that there would never be another Bethesda game on PlayStation systems in the future. Quote, it's not a sorry you're never going to get to play anything on Bethesda again situation, he explains. Certainly there are going to be things that you're not going to be able to play on PlayStation. He then went on to discuss Starfield, saying it was announced as a thing that an Xbox exclusive, then going on to state, I don't know if would go so far to say you're done ever playing stuff on PlayStation, but then again, I don't know the answer to that right now. This was interpreted by some suggesting that Starfield would potentially not remain exclusive to Xbox forever, but Hines and Xbox Greensberg later shot those down on Twitter. After one Twitter user claimed that Hines' comments could mean the door might still be open for the possibility of games like Starfield coming to PS5 in the future, Greensberg made it clear that Starfield was Xbox only. His tweet was, quote, Starfield will be an launch exclusively on Xbox Series S and X and PC on November 11th, 2022. He reiterated, though, Game Pass members can play it day one as well on Xbox and PC. I know we have said this all before, and none of that has or will change. When it was pointed out that to Greensberg that by saying launch exclusively, it could be interpreted as a time exclusivity, Greensberg replied, we have tried to be as clear as possible, not a time exclusivity. This is simply where the game is being made. Another user asked Hines for clarification on the situation, asking if it was indeed suggested that Starfield could come to the PS5 in the future. He pointed, quote, no, that isn't what I was suggesting. Hines replied, posting a Bob's Burger GIF, GIF, to suggest some people are grasping at straws, though. Meanwhile, over at Pure Xbox, there have been reports lately that basically Elder Scrolls 6 could take the same route as Starfield. According to the article, it reads that, quote, last night saw a range of social media drama as the topic of Starfield being an Xbox exclusive surfaced once again. Following it on from that, one industry insider reiterated, apologize for not saying it correctly, the game will not be coming to other consoles, or neither will the Elder Scrolls 6. According to journalist Jeff Grubbs, which he has a history of being right and wrong on certain things, though, not only will Starfield be an Xbox exclusive title, but the Elder Scrolls 6 is also planned to be the following in the same footsteps. Of course, this is not confirmed, this is not confirmation, but at the same time, it's not overly surprising. Xbox had previously said future Xbox titles will be delivered on platforms where Game Pass exists. So, I think to some degree this is sort of ridiculous that we're still having this discussion, to be exact. Look, I would love to see Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6 on something like the PS5 or the PS4, or even hell, the Nintendo Switch for that matter, assuming they could pull it off. But, you know what? Since Microsoft now owns Bethesda, whatever decision they make going forward is basically what they're going to do. I mean, unless there's proof that Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield are on the same contract obligation that currently Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop are, the only way you're going to play these games is either you're going to have to either get it on PC, get an Xbox Series X and S, or get Game Pass. That's really the only way to play this, though. I mean, could Microsoft decide, yeah, we'll bring it to other systems, we'll bring it to the PS5 or even the Switch for that matter? Yes, they could if they wanted to, but I seriously doubt that basically they're going to do that, though. I just think this is sort of dumb that this discussion is still going on, though. I think it's time to give this a rest, though, okay? The only way you're going to play Starfield is going to be on, like I mentioned, Game Pass, PC, or Xbox Series S and X. And while there isn't an official confirmation, It would not surprise me if that's the same situation with Elder Scrolls 6, though, okay? Again, we don't know, but I'm not shocked if we hear that Elder Scrolls 6, the only way to play that game is going to be either on Xbox Series X and S, PC, or Game Pass for that matter. As for whether Starfield is going to be a good game or not, well, I would say, for me though, I'm not entirely sold on that game yet, though. I'm not saying I want the game to fail or anything like that, but given some of Bethesda's histories ranging from how they've launched some of their games in buggy states, and as I mentioned, the whole Fallout 76 situation, though, I do have my concerns about the game, though. That being said, it's too early to tell. We haven't seen any gameplay yet, and since it's going to be on Game Pass, though, it does at least give me an opportunity to try the game out before I decide if I want to spend my excuse me, my hard-earned money on it or not, though. So I will say it's too early to tell, though, whether Starfield will be a bad game or not, though, but I do have some concerns about it, so I'm not entirely sold on it yet at this moment, though. But a lot can happen between now and when it launches on November 11th, 2022, though. So overall, this is ridiculous, though. It's time to put this to rest, though. Let's be honest. The only way you're going to play Starfield is going to be either on an Xbox Series S and X, PC, or via Game Pass. So unless there's hard evidence to show that it's going to come to other systems, or if there's proof that it's in the situation that Ghostwire Tokyo or Deathloop's in, though, it's time to put this whole situation to rest once and for all. Same with Elder Scrolls 6. Yes, it's not been confirmed, but don't be shocked if it goes the same route with Starfield, where the only way to play Elder Scrolls 6 is either by PC, Game Pass, or Xbox Series X and S. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with supposedly Sony making some changes to, or a redesign to the PS5 that not everyone out there, I won't say everyone, but not everyone is, not everybody's happy with some of the choices that they're making. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the PS5, especially considering that there's been some change to the components to it that has led to some folks feeling maybe that Sony is cutting corners with it. Now, I'm sure for most of you out there, a PS5 is hard to come by, or hard to find to be exact, though. There have been those who've been lucky to find it, but folks like us out there, including me, have been having a hard time, especially with the issue of the scalpers. Not to mention, we're also dealing with the whole chip shortage situation due to the pandemic, aka COVID-19 to be exact, though. So we have heard there have been stories coming around lately that Sony was considering finding ways to get more PS5s. That includes cutting down on some of the components or making some modifications or redesigns to at least get more PS5s out there for people to pick up. Well, recently, a YouTuber by the name of Austin Evans did a teardown of what apparently is a redesign that was supposedly released in Japan. And judging by some of the stuff he says, though, some of it interpreted as that this design may be worse than the original PS5. In two articles, though, first one reported by Video Game Chronicles, it reads that, quote, tech YouTuber Austin Evans managed to obtain the revised PS5 model, which quietly went on sale in Japan and Australia this month. After taking the console apart, he discovered that the new console has an updated fan design and a small change to its Wi-Fi antenna, which could match plans for a new wireless communicated model mentioned in a Sony document earlier this year. However, by far the most significant change discovered in the teardown was confirmation that the revised console weighs 300 Gs less than the original model as first suggested by a Sony hardware manual due to a significant reduction heatsink. A heatsink is a device designed to transfer heat away from the CPUs, GPUs, and chipsets so that they can run more effectively and safely. Without effective cooling, hardware can degrade over time and performance can be affected. The original PS5 already runs hot, and the recent introduction of an expandable NVE SSD storage require users to add further cooling VI and additional heatsink. The new PS5 heatsink appears to have been made much smaller than the original launch design, likely due to new learnings from Sony's engineer teams, but also to save costs. Sony has been selling PS5 consoles at a loss since launch, but it's recently claimed it was now able to sell PS5 disc version as a profit for the first time. This could possibly be related to the virtual removal of copper from the new PS5 model heatsink, as revealed in Evan's teardown. During the pandemic, the price of copper has increased significantly, and contribution to the scarcity of components need to manufacture electronic devices. While the whole smaller heatsink doesn't necessarily mean that the new PS5 will run hotter than the launch model, Evan's temperature test, which only took readings from the exhaust vent rather than the internal components, suggests that the new model was emitting around 3C more heat than the launch console. However, this could easily mean that the new model is simply blowing out heat more effectively rather than running hotter components, so more thorough tests will be required to determine whether the new heatsink actually makes a difference in performance. Evans said in the video, "I would guess what happened is Sony, now that they've gotten almost a year of PS4 data and they spent more time testing, have determined that while yes, this is going to run a little bit hotter, that's probably fine and won't negatively impact things that much." He went on to criticize Sony's decision to reduce PS5's heatsink, saying, quote, "I don't think there's any argument that this is a worse console, at least for thermal and cooling," he said. "Maybe they changed some Wi-Fi stuff. Maybe as we dig deeper into this, we'll find more quirks and features, but as far as I'm concerned, I would rather have a launch PS5 though." While the PS5 hardware uses a CFI1XXS model numbering scheme, the revised model uses a new CFI11XX scheme. As previously suggested, the updated PS5 has confirmed to feature a new screw to attach console to its stand, which now could be adjusted by hand instead of requiring a screwdriver though. Now, ever since that video came out, there are some people that have commented on this, though, and some have sort of responded to Austin Evans' video, though. According to The Gamer, the quote says, quote, "Hardware enthusiasts have continued to weigh in since the video went live, arguing that the hotter model may just be more effective when it comes to distributing the heat. Evan has since added a new comment to his video addressing the debate, saying, quote, "Couple people mentioned higher exhaust temperatures could mean the cooler is doing a better job dispensing heat. The thing is, Sony removes a sizable amount of the heatsink in this new model. With fewer fins and smaller heat pipes, it simply isn't as effective as moving the heat out of the console. Think about it as if it were a PC. If I remove a large CPU heatsink in favor of a smaller one, the exhaust coming off my system would be hotter, as the overall system temperatures are higher since the weaker cooler can't cope. That's exactly what I'm going here, IMO." So, should I be worried about this if I pick up a new PS5, assuming I could find one? Not necessarily. To me, this sounds like that, despite the change, though I'm not a tech expert, so I didn't want to be clear about that, though, it's not going to have a huge impact as long as you stick your PS5 or in a place where it can easily get the heat out. I mean, if you put it in an extremely closed place, that might have a major impact. I mean, we've heard stories about how one person's Xbox Series X melted, mostly because their cat sat on the top where the heat would, need to go out, though. I mean, I've had my Xbox Series S and my Nintendo Switch, and they have gotten warm, but not to the point that I'm worried, though, mostly because I don't game too long, to be exact. So I'm not hugely bothered by this, as long as you put your system in a proper place where it could dispense the heat and all. So as long as that's going on, I think your system should be okay. So overall, I'm not worried too much about this though. So, I mean, it's possible. I mean, obviously Sony's trying to get more PS5s out, and maybe they're doing this as a way to figure out how they could cut costs and get more PS5s out quicker and all. I mean, whether you think it's the right call or not remains to be seen, but for me personally, I'm not too worried about this at all. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week, and of course, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about this criticism about some of Steam's refund policy, though? Do you think this reinforces the argument that Steam's refunds policy is bad? Or do you think, like me, that figure, you know what, it's still a good policy, and you still want it to continue, but maybe they need to make some adjustments to it to ensure that it's not being abused or neglected in any way, though? And do you still think Steam's refund policy is still a good idea? And do you think companies like Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony should apply that to their digital storefronts? What are your thoughts about these rumors about Game Boy and Game Boy Color's games making their way over to Nintendo Switch's online service? Do you think this rumor is true? Do you think Nintendo will shadow drop these games? Or do you think they'll announce it in a Nintendo Direct, assuming many people believe the Direct will come out this month, though? Do you think they should bring Game Boy Advance games over? And what other retro consoles do you think they should bring over? Do you think something like a Game Gear, or even going as far back as, say, like a Commodore 64 in any way? What are your thoughts about Bethesda clarifying the whole situation around Starfield? Do you think that the situation's got maybe a little bit out of control? Do you still believe Starfield's coming to the PS5? Or do you think that, you know what, it's going to be on either Xbox Series X and S, or PC, or Game Pass, and that's the only way you're going to play the game? And do you expect Elder Scrolls 6 will follow the same approach, same situation that Starfield is in, as the only way to play it is going to be on either Xbox Series X and S, or PC, or Game Pass? And what are your thoughts about this whole situation surrounding the redesign over the PS5? Do you think this is a big deal in terms of them changing the heating thing? Do you think that could have a negative impact on the PS5? Or do you don't think it's a big deal and figure that, you know what, as long as I don't put my system in a closed space and I put it in a space where it can dispense the heat, though, you're okay and all? You believe it's going to be okay and all? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!